Josh, you almost done, or? I'm going to call the meeting of the WPCC joint committee between Willoughby and Eastlake to order at 6 p.m. I'm going to let everybody go around and just introduce who you are, if you don't mind, whoever is on the committee. I know that we have in attendance Mayor Fiala, who is here from Willoughby, and I'm sorry I don't know a lot of other people. However, I'm going to let you guys go around and say who you are.
I'm Michael Semick, Council at Large Eastlake.
Dan Anderson, Council at Large Willoughby.
Angela Schmidt, Council at Large Eastlake.
Jay Orca.
We all know.
Superintendent WPCC.
Dan Jerry's, Councilman Willoughby.
Tom Whiter, Eastlake City Engineer.
Alyssa Moran, Eastlake Council Clerk.
And I am Chris Kroniak, Council at Large, I have to say, and Chair of the committee here in Eastlake.
Jessica Dutton, WPCC Office Associate 3.
Mike Brooks, WPCC Maintenance Supervisor.
Tim Lannon, Willoughby City Engineer.
Elisa Novak, City Willoughby Council Clerk.
Jim Sales from CT Control Clerk, former Willoughby City Engineer.
Kevin Kostelnik, Eastlake Service Director.
Rich Palmisano, Willoughby Service Director.
Bob Dion, Mayor Willoughby.
John Hollis, City Superintendent, WPCC.
John Ayers, Eastlake Council President.
Eastlake Council Vice President.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for attending. We really appreciate it. It's a much needed and wonderful thing, as Angela and I got to see. We went on a WPCC tour, and it was fascinating. Truly it was. Science geek in me was loving it. So we appreciate you being here. At this point, I think I'm going to turn everything over to Jack and let you kind of, is that what you would like to do, Jack? You look confused. You tell me.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll just go over the annual report. If everybody has their annual report, we set their executive summary on page 4. Stop me anywhere if you have questions, or if you've already looked at it and you have all sorts of tabs in your annual report, you know, have questions that you can't wait to ask. We're here, that's what we're here for. Typically, in the past, we try to move through this as quickly as possible. Everybody just wants to be here for a long time, so evidently I've been told I can talk for a long period of time. So this year I'm trying to speed it up. Item number 1, we had a really good year with keeping within our discharge permit limits. That's what our parameters for anything on the discharge of our water. We do an awesome job every year, I want to say, but in the last 4 years straight, we've had suspended solids of 6. That's the suspended solids that are in the water that are going out 6 parts per million, and all that. We've done that 4 years in a row. Before that, we hadn't done that since 1983, and that's a tip of the hat to Mr. Hall over there, who is awesome at running the plant every day, keeping us running clean and our effluent in perfect, pristine condition. Last year we had, item number 2 is our average daily flow was 5.9 million gallons. 4th lowest since 1977. Which Jim always is excited about. Rainfall like flow. And our rainfall ended up being like similar to the year before, on our average and all that. And we equate this low flow to most of the rain events were heavy events, 1 day, and then 30 days of nothing, sort of thing. So on the average, that's what we ended up being at. Current NPDES requires to have us do additional toxicity sampling. We've been doing that for years. We've been talking about it for years. We got it down to where we think we have it solved. Doesn't keep the EPA from wanting to impose like further limits on us or anything like that. But at this point, you know, we're maintaining our ammonia below 8 and achieving the reduction of 25% below our baseline targets EPA, you know, assigned to us. This has been a big deal. The toxicity basically is our minnows, our bacteria, the water fleas. They just test with our effluent to see if they will die. We just talked about how good our effluent is. As long as our effluent has ammonia limits below 8, we're fine. And we've been having like zeros for our toxicity for years and all that. But I bring it up that the EPA continues to ask us to do this. doing it biannual, twice a month in June and July or August and all that, so they increased all that testing on that, and they're still having us monitor it, even with the point of being on October 1st of 23, we're gonna have limits imposed. We'll meet those limits and all that, but they're gonna impose limits. Hopefully by the next permit cycle, they'll see that we aren't having any toxicity issues and they'll reduce the frequency of the sampling and all that. All this long-winded being said, that if they continue to push us to lower our ammonia limits all year round below 8, and we can't achieve them below 8 in the winter, is we have to do some serious plant upgrade to be a nitrifying plant to remove ammonia all the time, all year round. But just this week, our ammonia finally went back up above 8. We've been able to cultivate ammonia reducing bacteria in our plant and keep it going for longer and longer into the winter every year. But now we'll be above ammonia, above 8 for the next 2-3 months. And I don't know whether the EPA is going to, in the end, take us to task for that. So that's why we belabor this point. Item number 4 was the current permit that we have became effective October 1st of 2020. Contained within it were the following wet weather control measures. We had some of them carried over from the previous permit. I'll try to get through them really quick, but one of them was a capacity enhancement project that began in the previous permit, and they required that it be completed in this permit cycle by December 31st, and it was. We were done on June 22nd with the capacity enhancement project. No later than June 30th, we had to submit a PTI for phase 2 of the Waverly Release Sewer, and East Lake was in charge of that whole project and submitted all that information. And the second item is that it has to be completed by the end of this year. And I believe you guys are gonna start construction in spring.
It got pushed back. We're having trouble with the EPA and with the county, the water line and the sewer, alignment, so I expect that's gonna be pushed out a little bit. So we're gonna have to do a letter, because it'll go, right now, it looks like it'll go later in the end of this year.
Okay. Yeah, let me know when you know something, so we can try to give them an extended date. For all those who don't know, usually you typically have to, EPA doesn't, I feel like they don't care that you miss deadlines, but as long as you have a reason why you're missing them, and you're showing good faith effort to continue forward, to get projects done, things like that, that kind of dovetails into our SSES, which is huge and was required to be done by the end of 24, but a whole bunch of those items aren't, but they understand that we're always moving forward, trying to get stuff done, so. The next item would be the, approvable PTI for East Island Basin. It's East Island Basin per the EPA permit, but we renamed it the Lakeshore East EQ tank. And that's supposed to have a PTI in by the end of 23. And there's a few things we'll talk about regarding that later on with that construction. But we did a study over there on where the site would be located. And about over a year ago, we bought property by the McDonald's in East Lake for the site of the EQ tank. I can jump forward a little bit here. That tank we put in for an earmark, and we got a $3.5 million earmark sitting in Congress right now, and I'm not sure the speed of the whole project, when we get the earmark, how fast they expect us to move or not move, but that will be something we'll get back to you guys with as soon as we hear about that, depending on when that project has to go on. Saying all this is like we're not going to wait. We're going to move forward once we get that money. And so this timeline will could be sped up. I'm hoping that at some point they take up that appropriation again or something.
And I spoke with Dave Jones' office too. They're actually looking into that for you just to see where it's at in the process.
Oh, okay.
Might actually be pushing it.
We all think Thursday. So that being said, even if it goes on a regular timeline, that's supposed to be done by the end of 2024. One of the other requirements was to start post-construction monitoring plan at the end of 23. We already started it with finishing the capacity enhancement project. We're already doing some I went on a report 2 weeks ago on the 17th, a big rain event and all that, and in conjunction with the CEP and the other things that we're doing and the expansion of the size of the plant, we stored or processed 4.316 million gallons. That's 4 in the past that have gone right out. Pause, hold the pause. I think it's a big deal. I mean, that's what the whole reason we do all this stuff is not put that much water. You think about 4.3 million gallons of water that didn't go out into the lake. Last item was on June 30th of each year, we start submitting progress reports on all these different separate issues and all that, and we began that on June 29th. SSDCP is a satellite sewer discharge control program. EPA wants to know what all our satellite communities are doing, because you're not under our permit, you don't have your own permits that you discharge to us. And so these are the requirements that are in here. I won't read them out, of what you have to do to us annually to let us, and we in turn let the EPA know what you guys are doing. So, because you discharge to us, to the WPCC. Item number 6, pre-treatment. There was no compliance inspection again in 21. That's just, to me, that it speaks volumes to our program. They know we do a great job, and they never find anything. And Louie's just a good actor in that regard. It generated $140,000 in revenues from surcharges, extra state waste for Willoughby and East Lake. And of the 900 industrial samples, only 13 resulted in violations. There again, it's part of our public outreach the pre-treat does to let everybody know that, hey, you can't pump this stuff down the drain anymore, no matter what it is, and all that. So very few violations. Everybody gets it. Clean water is a necessary thing. Item number 7 is where I talk about the maintenance department, who happens to be sitting here today, so I have to say nothing but nice things this time.
Let me step out for now.
But the highlight of last year are in there, which is most of working with Great Lakes with construction maintenance. It was almost daily that something had to be done when construction's going on or something is uncovered that we either fixed or tried to fix or made better for them to fix it and stuff like that. So it occupied a ton of our time. But in spite of that, we also, our guys are gung-ho anymore. I guess we have an awesome crew. I can't speak, I thought the last crew we had was good, and they retired, but you guys are even better. So don't be afraid of new people coming in. They put in a whole new influent gate. They took out the old one, put a new one in while it was running.
I was there.
Yeah. It's amazing stuff. Also,
Yeah, because I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was managing the construction, looking over Great Lakes down there. The coordination that Jack's guys made, in particular, that contractor saved the city lots of money. Things that you didn't have to have the contractor do by change order and so on. It worked out great. Those jobs never go perfectly, especially when you keep the plant running while you're doing modification.
Yeah.
Kudos to the maintenance department.
And in our case, that everything that we're doing was interrupting or disturbing areas where there's tons of stuff already and all that. I mean, it's always a challenge to do that much construction in stuff that's already been previously constructed. So one of the other items too is in a sort of, I don't know what we're talking about a whole lot, but the siphon east, so the east EQ tank, the east Lakeshore East EQ tank, kind of is going to bump out the siphon through the engine bill. So we decided not to rebuild and use that money to do Lakeshore East. So that left us still with the problem of the siphon's still full sludge and it's full, it needs to be gutted and all that. And we decided that the engineers decided we're going to make it a surge tank. So the maintenance department again took it on themselves to go in there, start gutting that. I was going to supply you with pictures, but I think it's too much, especially with pizza. So, you don't want to see those pictures. But we hired an outside contractor and we removed all the sludge in the tank for $49,000, and what they didn't get out, we had Willoughby stuck out and dumped. And facilitate this whole thing, we ended up having to build another dump pad between our mixed hole tanks, so we could take that sludge and discharge it right into our tank and process it, instead of the contractor hauling it away. It's hard to estimate with those kind of outfits, but I'm thinking minimum we saved about $30,000 by just doing that. And it cost us maybe $2,000 to build that pad. And once again, the maintenance department did that all, laid the block, poured the concrete, dug the hole, did all that sort of stuff, cut a hole, poured a hole through the tank and put a valve in, a pipe, and all that. There again, on top of doing all the other stuff, this was their fill-in work and all that. So that made that whole process go well. But I want to say about 40–50% of the site is gutted. The plan is to finish that off this spring. So that whole section of, which would have been a capital expense on some other project, is done in-house. It will be completed, and that thing will be kind of ready to sit there and do its thing be a search chamber for the future. So item number 8 was getting to staffing. We have some staff here. We got good attendance and all that, and we have office associate 3, long journey there, and all that. We had 17 at the end of the year, but right now currently we have 50. We had 3 long-time employees retired, Diana Passwaiter and lab supervisor and our midnight supervisor on operations. We filled the operations shift, and we're still in the process of filling the other 2. Not as easy as it is. Not a whole lot of people want to work on it, but we'll get through. We're people are working extra overtime and all that, but there again, we're not paying salaries for anybody because we don't have any, people those spots filled in. And all will be hired in at lower levels, so budget will reflect that accordingly for the next few years. Safety, item number 9, we usually gloss over this. We didn't have a single reported injury, not a Band-Aid last year. With construction. Hard to believe. Moving on. Item number 10, so the rehab, so this kind of brings the rehab of the EQ tanks back into focus. Try to rehash that. It's in the report. There's a whole lot of lengthy reading. In the end, we did not rehab Lakeshore West, which is the tank that's out in front here of East Lake City Hall and Dalton. They're designed to rehab them, to clean them, gut them, and put in tipping buckets. The cleaning mechanisms is there. The design's complete. Money's just not available. They've sort of been on the sidelines as we've gone after. The siphon was going to be the first one, but we didn't do the siphon. So Lakeshore East now is rising up to be the more important project. Those 2 projects are sitting there. At some point, we need to do those, but they're not in the queue yet. We haven't even asked for any more money. I was hoping that we're going to get something out of the American Recovery and Rescue Act or whatever, and Tim can speak to that. It turns out they're just going to have a whole lot more money to lend, but no free money. So I don't know whether it does us any good because our debt service and all that is declining, and those will be decisions for probably down the road 2–3 years from now. But they are still there, and they still need to be cleaned. They still need to be retrofitted. Item number 11 is the budget. The request for next year is like $3,804,000, thereabouts. That moves around depending on salaries, the finances changes that, the wages, benefits. The budget's about 3 3/4 lower than last year's adopted budget, and last year's expenditures were about 5.4 higher than 2020, but I'll say they're only 1.2% higher than 2019. The biggest jump in it is the payroll and retirement made a big impact. The retirements we had to pay out, which we'll have again this year too. Noteworthy in that budget was the request, my budget requested size of the debt service. I just want to point out to everybody, and we did a handout, which is an updated sheet, so that sheet should go in
Page 42.
around page 42. And that makes the totals all total correctly. So So while we're looking at this year's debt service will be $628,000, we're gonna be adding another $190 plus to that, because we'll have a full year of the capacity enhancement in 23. Our debt service is over $800,000. Moving forward, and we haven't done Lakeshore East yet. Good news is if you turn one more page over, past that, you'll see the replacement fund. One page from 42, so page 43, somewhere. Right in the bottom, the middle is the fund balance for replacement is $3 million. It's not encumbered to go anywhere. The water line's already in it. It's been taken out of it. So that is money that we could use for something at some point. We set aside $450,000 a year, and without any special earmarks or anything like that, we see it growing this year again. We're looking to take a belt press out of it. We'll get to that in a little bit, but that's the bright news, I guess, that we are sitting at $3 million to do replacement projects of some sort. Flow meters for last year were almost identical to flow split. And we'll talk about flow split, the cost of O&M, not capital. Capital is 50-50 between the cities, but in engineering, I believe, too. But the flow split is all the O&M, which is all the rest of our budget is split. Will be like on that percentage. We do that when we calibrate the meters quarterly. They have to do certified meter calibrations so that all the meters are working correctly and the flow can be appropriately distributed, and so the cost can be treated. Item number 15 is the projects that we were working on this year. One was the capacity enhancement project, and that closed out June 22nd was the official end date for that project. Total construction cost was $5.9 million, and that included about 9% contingencies. I thought that was pretty good, given the size of the project, and that all the interferences where we were digging, where everything had to go, all the things we ran into. I mean, engineers typically say, that those projects have significant overruns when you have that much stuff that potentially be in the way. I don't think there was a day where we didn't find something that was new, that wasn't on any print. The other item was the water main project. I know that Kim is feverishly working on solving this. I think we're still, if you read in there, this has been an ongoing saga, probably 4 years now, if not more, and all that. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we're no closer than we were 4 years ago, but at least we have a lot of nice prints, and they change constantly, and they're looking a little better. But I want to say it's not the engineer's fault or the county. I don't want to get in trouble, but this is recorded, and I'm a short timer and all that. They have not been, smoothing the path either. So I'm hoping we get something moving this year. We even have an alternate path, maybe up Gilbert Drive. Anybody knows Huffman, and he's willing to allow us to use his utility easement, that would be great. I'm sure this project could be maybe brought in cheaper, but anymore I don't know what the costs going through the roof for everything. Third item is the Lakeshore East Basin project. We'll talk about that on hold with that $3.5 million earmark, but that can go anytime. If we get that earmark and there's a timeline to it, that we'll have to start plans probably immediately. It'll take about 9 months to put together or whatever, and so that would be that project. So those are the 3 replacement projects, the highlighted ones. Item number 16 is us talking about the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act and whether we can get money or not. At the time when I wrote this, we didn't know anything, and the webinar has been sent on February 2nd, and it basically said there's a whole bunch more money the government's going to lend you But the grants are predominantly for emerging contaminants, which is PFAS, if anybody's heard about any of those things that are gonna be a problem. They're like everywhere, and they're trying to figure out how to clean them up. So a lot of this money's for that and lead line replacement for water. So what we thought might be a whole lot of grant money is probably not, most likely not, but we can borrow more. Item number 17 is new requests for funding. These are actually smaller, but this would come out of that $3 million area is what I'm thinking. We need a new belt press, the one we put in. My predecessors put it in 1993. We took it all apart, reassembled it in place for $213,000 and all that. Back in the day, that was $93. So we're planning to do the same thing again, and they want to follow their predecessors' footsteps. So we're gonna get a new press. The one we have now, they won't sell us a new frame. We bought all sorts of parts and all that, but they won't give us a new frame, and the frame's bought. So the new one we get is gonna be stainless, so we can never get it again. We'll have a press for 40 years. The other part of it is the cost associated with the belt press polymer system. I $175,000. I know that's what a new one costs. Maintenance department thinks they can build one on their own for far less. So
We'll give it a shot.
yeah, I have to mention it, so you guys will see it coming. The last one is the engineering for the Lakeshore East Basin. If that comes about, but the whole process with that, all councils will get notified, will have to request access to the funds. I believe the engineering money will come from replacement up front before it becomes a capital project. But we'll also have to pass legislation to amend the existing agreement between the two cities to pay for it, like we have in the past. So I got a whole laundry list of what happens if one of these big projects fail, and we have to start notifying everybody. That's all, you'll all be involved with legislation, so. And the last one is that the 1986 expansion was totally, a big chunk of it was grant money, and we're committed to always maintain the assets that the federal government paid for. That's kind of what I have.
Can I interject really quick? I just, for the benefit of Mike and Angela, the money that he's talking about is earmarked. There were 10 community projects that Dave Joyce built into HB 4372. And that, one of them was the equalization basin. So it's kind of stalled, and there's been really no update on what's happening with the village. But that's kind of the background on that. That's where we're hoping to get one of them is earmarked for us to be able to pay.
I'd say, like, we haven't gotten federal money on this stuff since 86, 84. This would be the first time we got any federal money. We were like, kudos to Tim and everybody who got involved. We found out that they had this money available and just aggressively went at it. We contacted mayors and Green River Partners and got this letter from everybody saying what benefit it would be, because that overflow there goes right into that's the east branch right there, but right in somebody's slip. Comes out right underneath their boat. And I see no better project again, that needs some attention. I think obviously Joyce's office are going to be there too.
Yeah, when I reached out to somebody there, and they're doing the research department is putting it together to try to figure out where it's going, where it's at, if there's a timeline on it, and they might be looking at it.
So that's all I have, unless you have some specific questions on any part of it, as you went through it.
Anybody have any questions on anything that we're looking at?
I think my biggest, I noticed like yesterday in Willoughby, they always ask for the highlights and lowlights or whatever. It's not a low light, but the highlight of us is just our debt service continues to get bigger, and we still have a big project. The earmark would be huge to get that money to offset some of the cost of all the Lakeshore.
One of the other major costs, it seems like for you, is electricity, right? I mean, is that a big, because you're always using electricity?
Yes and good handle on that, but we're losing, you know, the way the market's gone, there used to be electricity, buying the electricity was the biggest part. Anymore, there's so much distribution cost recoveries and all that. I don't want to bore everybody with all that. The bigger part of your bill, I want to say anymore, like 60% isn't energy. It's everything else. The heat tech in and piling on and all that stuff. The corruption in Columbus, all that got baked into cost recovery. There's so many things that are now in your electric bill that have nothing to do with energy. And you know, I do the purchasing for Willoughby and stuff like that where I can for natural gas and electric and all those utilities, the commodity costs are getting smaller.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, of your bill, your bill may be getting bigger, and no matter what we do to try to save money, the distribution parts just keep getting bigger, just if you don't get anywhere. Yeah.
Well, I had requested to have something added to the agenda, simply because when I was doing the tour, one of the things that I had a question about was the data system, and the cybersecurity, if there had been a recent, like, architectural data assessment, or even a pen tester at any point to see how easy it was to get into the system. If some apps are running in the background, whether it's a teamwork app or something else, or if it's a legacy SCADA system, there can be a lot of holes to it. And there was a recent case in Florida where they were a hacker was able to get into SCADA system. And one of the benefits to it in industrial use is that you have the ability to utilize it from your phone, so you can control certain things from your phone. A certain number of people can. So my question was the recent cybersecurity. With the state of the world the way it is, if anyone was able to hack into that system, environmentally, it could be a disaster. It could be a disaster to Willoughby and Eastlake if any of that water is contaminated. The case in Florida, specifically Jack on it as well, they were literally able to get in there and control, I can't remember what it was. It was not first chloride, it wasn't chlorine.
Some chemical feed, it was the water supply. So
Right.
They were trying to poison the water.
They were poisoning the water supply. Some did leak into it, parts per million were very small, but it did occur, and it just so happened that somebody had been walking by the screen and saw that it was adjusted. That was the only reason they caught it. They were able to manually override it, which is fantastic. So I'm gonna let Jack talk on this a little bit, but that's what my concerns were. And because Eastlake was at an epicenter of North America's largest power outage, you know, anybody looking at a Google map would see it very close to First Energy and would be also able to see that this is where our water supply comes from. So I just had those questions. I don't know if there's a specific IT specialist from Willoughby that does this, or if it's something that, I did speak to one cybersecurity specialist, who's willing to do an architectural data, for free at no cost. He does work, he knows you very well. So Mr. Farwell, agreed that he would be willing to do that. That was something that you would be interested in.
So we became aware of this, last fall. Well, we've heard of people getting hacked into, and we've always known that we have one IP address, we have one way in.
Right.
And Protect, who does our SCADA, has that. But now we have, actually the plant is on tablets and a phone. So we can just bring it up, and if you leave your app open, technically, if you're anywhere, somebody can get in your app.
Right.
Or whatever. I mean, I have not even pretend I'm an IT guy at all. So, but what gave me pause in the fall, so what you have out there is the US EPA realized when that happened, that they need to do something about all these plants. So we're really not watching, because we don't, you know, we're wastewater treatment, who has to mess it up? But they're more concerned with water, but wastewater, they're all lumped together. So they have free cybersecurity assessments, the technical assistance that they're willing to do, and all that. What gave me pause was like, it says have your IT person there. Right? So we don't have, you know, at the time our IT person was not up to snuff, so I don't know if you like have an IT person.
We've recently hired
Yeah, we have
someone
someone come on board.
March 14th.
So what I wanted to do is schedule this. It sounds to me it's like a, you know, a Zoom meeting and you gotta get all the players in one place and all that. And
So, Jack, I have a question though, or anybody else. So they're providing this as a free service, is EPA paying? Who's paying that? Are they doing?
I think EPA,
Okay.
it was all part of some,
And I mean, I would have some questions. Is this information we get come, attachment free, meaning
yeah.
there will be follow-up, right? Are we committing to this company to do the follow-up or not? What does a follow-up meeting cost?
Yeah. No, all these
free
valid.
makes me nervous because
Right.
nothing's for free.
Yeah.
So basically what they do, and I'll kind of just explain a little bit, because I did do a lot of research into this, and my son's a cybersecurity specialist, so I kind of picked his brain a little bit. They usually come in and they check the data, the architecture of the SCADA system first of all, just to see, are there any areas that are loose that could be tightened up, whether it's fingerprint identification as opposed to a passcode, or two-party identification. You guys use a Teamwork app on it, is it called Teamwork, do you know? For your
Connect Line.
Okay, it's the same thing, right. So that just gives them the ability to control it from their phone. So the data architecture, they would come in to pick out some points. And then usually the next step is a penetration tester or pen tester. And then they would come in and almost hack your system. And then they would tell you, hey, look, I've just been able to hack into this system, lickety split. This is what I've been able to do. I've been able to control A, B, C, and D. And then they come up with a game plan after that. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I think the first series of stuff, whether it's with the EPA or with Mr. Farwell, who would be willing to do it, whatever, I think it's a smart and a conscientious thing to do, particularly given the state of affairs that we're in. It just makes us safer. And I don't want to say that we're doing it based on a hypothetical, but we run budgets on hypotheticals. You know? I
can tell you the city will be, our external consultant, BPI, just did some work through our systems. I don't know how much they've done pen tests. I do know they're doing two-factor authentication. So I know things are happening. What I don't want to do is commit to anybody that represents a commitment to a cost. I'm always looking at a free study, but I'm pretty confident that whatever this study generates in terms of information, we have the capacity internally to execute it. I really do.
Right. Well, and I think that's great, and that's all my concern was, is, hey, let's have a general idea, let's take a step, and then if your IT guy is able to then handle it, manage it, take over it, great. You know, again, environmentally, you know, we're right here on this lake, we've got rivers. If any of this happens, it could be truly detrimental to all the cities. So that was my big concern.
Well, what we can do, I guess, what we can do is I can reach out to the new IT people, and Willoughby, and give them this and tell them what you're looking for, and we'll go from there.
But I do agree with you. It's good practice to manage security risks, cybersecurity risks, because I'm sure East Lake State is always doing the same thing. We get high, the worst case is a contamination. The less worst case is they steal our data and then extort us to get it back.
Oh, 1,000%.
Both are bad.
1,000%. And you know, it's one thing to manage a city's IT and everything, but the SCADA system is a real funky beast in and of itself. I mean, Chernobyl was a breakdown in the SCADA system. So, you know, it's a real different beast, and it's one that kind of, you really got to test it and figure it out. So, I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
So, I want to make sure that Beck has the right instructions going forward. So, can we wait till the 14th till our new IT guys on board so we can review this with Jack?
That's fine.
And maybe we get a report out to the committee.
Yeah, that would be great. And I would love to be there in the meeting if you'd allow it. I'd like to be able to bounce some ideas and be in on that.
Absolutely.
All right, great.
The person that DPA is saying you should contact, and I'm familiar with that name, that's an engineering firm.
Yeah. I think they were hired by USCPA.
Yeah, so I don't know what their
My fear, Jimmy,
capabilities are.
remember we did that whole study of all facilities and they're going to save money, and at the end of the day, they wanted to sell $4 million worth of people.
Yeah.
So,
Can I throw that stuff away then?
well,
Still have some
the thing
files.
is we did most of it, we did a lot of stuff we did.
Yeah.
So my point is that we could probably identify risks,
Absolutely.
but we probably have the ability to manage that risk ourselves.
And I've like reached out to ProTech too and asked them these questions, and they said,
Oh, yeah.
They're up front, they're saying
Totally.
like, don't have illusions that you're safe.
Yeah, the same thing that makes this entire system fantastic, is the ability to pick up a phone or a tablet and utilize it, is the same one that makes you most nervous, really. So, it's a good thing.
You're next.
I'm next.
Yeah, you put the item on there, Jen.
Well, I did the cybersecurity item,
Yeah.
and then I also had a question about the lab tech. You were talking about doing another lab. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're in the process of doing that now. So that's all part of the, we had in there with employment for under the personnel. And currently we're looking to add a pre-treatment who works in the lab too, pre-treatment guy and all that, so.
We're looking to add 2 new employees.
Okay.
One to assist the pre-treat and one to work the lab.
Okay.
So, that's kind of it. I thought you had some new initiative or something.
Oh, no, that was a copy of an email that never went out, so don't worry.
And by the way, just so that everybody understands too, these positions have to go through civil service, so there's
Sure.
a pretty rigorous process.
Right.
And there's some technical certification or licensure requirements that we need to be careful about too.
Nothing. Hiring people.
We were talking when we were on the tour about a possible, like a like a turbine that would provide electricity. Is that something that that you're interested in?
I don't know. It's the cost of it, if it's getting lower and lower, and as long as somebody else buys it for me. That was always
Always a thing.
back in the day, the wind turbines, we talked, the government was gonna pay for most of it and all that. And we're talking, Ray didn't wanna have any part of it, and this is the maintenance and stuff like that, but I would revisit it in a while, but this is a good location for wind turbines. I always thought of putting one right at the end of aeration, because you could go feed right into our grid and just generate power for ourselves and all that.
So you wouldn't actually have to sell it off and then.
Well, no, then it would
you
just connect right in. Yeah, I would just use it.
Wow.
And the battery technology has gotten better and all that sort of thing. I just haven't revisited it. I don't think anybody wanted a wind turbine in their backyard. Right here on it's WPCC sort of thing. But then we looked into solar arrays too. Still waiting to get that guy to get back to me, but we need the fields for that. We have the back field and kind of had the front field, but now it's the park, so. But some of the areas need the power lines potentially or whatever, but good idea.
Okay, good idea.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I just
Yeah,
want
sure.
to commend Jack. Many don't know this, the Councilman in Willoughby certainly knows, but over the past year, Jack's purchasing of power and fuel and his ability to manage costs on the utility side has been phenomenal. He just reported last night that he's actually developed plans to manage the use of electricity to actually, to some modest extent, remove us from the grids periodically to save electricity. So if there's anybody in the city of Willoughby that knows how to save money, Jack's the guy. He really.
Well, and I'll echo that as far as knowledge too. I mean, when I first knew that I was doing this show, I inundated him with questions and calling and asking, and he knew when he didn't know something. Like, well, okay, I'm not quite sure about that, but he was really great with the knowledge aspect of this, and I appreciated it. And,
I think we should all have Jack buy us our electric and gas.
I mean,
individually.
Diana saying this thing in reading, she was all like, no, I don't know what I'm buying, electricity and gas, you know, tell me what to do. She can still call you. Yeah. She has. But that's kind of all I have.
That's it, huh?
Unless you guys have anything else, another pressing issue.
Anybody?
I need SSDPP by Friday, please.
Yeah. Mine's almost done.
Let the minutes reflect it,
Gotta grow up.
That's right.
Thank you.
That's right.
Well, if that is everything, I will go ahead and close off the meeting. This is my first meeting, so I really appreciate you guys being kind. So we're gonna go ahead and close off the meeting at 6:51, and we'll adjourn.
Pretty short.
It was good, you didn't,
He knows that.
Kind of raced through it.
thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Don't
much,
let it-
thank you, I
Never know what
appreciate
can
it.
show up.
Hey, I said hello, how's he doing?
My brother?
Yeah, I went to school with him, he was very well.
Went to work out.
I did.
Put him over there.
Yeah.
He's living out here.